The boy hadn't spoken a word in 3 years, but tonight, as thunder cracked over the glass roof of the penthouse, a soft voice drifted through the hallway monitor. "Good evening, Miss Elena," the voice said. "Would you like me to recite in Mandarin or Arabic tonight?" Elena froze. The wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. She wasn't sure if it was the voice or the languages that shocked her more, because the voice belonged to her 7-year-old son, Leo, and Leo was autistic. Silent. Withdrawn. Diagnosed with selective mutism. Doctor said he might never speak again, yet there he was, speaking clearly and not in English. 3 minutes earlier, Elena Hart had returned home from a gala fundraiser, her hair damp from the sudden summer rain. Her assistant had left early. The bodyguards were downstairs giving her space. The penthouse was quiet, too quiet. Elena stepped out of her heels and carried them in her hand. As she passed the hallway console, a soft green light blinked. The nursery monitor. She tapped it, expecting silence or the usual soft humming from Leo's music box. Instead, a child's voice filled the hallway, one she hadn't heard in years. She backed up, staring at the screen. Leo was at his desk near the window, copying symbols from a book. His lips moved, words in a language she didn't understand. He paused, listened, then responded to someone, but no one else was in the room. Elena's heart thudded. She tapped the screen to rewind, the voice again. Then another sentence, another language. It wasn't an illusion. He was speaking, conversing, learning fluent. She rushed down the hallway barefoot, her breath shallow. "Leo," she whispered, stepping into his room. He turned and looked at her, really looked. His eyes were calm, alert, intelligent. "Mother," he said gently, in French. Eleanor staggered. "What did you just say?" Leo tilted his head, as if curious about her confusion. "Mother," he repeated in English this time. "Would you like it in Russian or Korean?" Before Elena could react, the door creaked behind her. Camilla, the housekeeper, entered holding a folded blanket. Elena turned. "What the hell is going on?" Camilla froze. She didn't look afraid or surprised. Instead, she offered a calm, almost sad smile. "It's time you knew, Mum." 6 weeks earlier, Camilla had arrived at the penthouse. Elena barely noticed her at first. She came highly recommended from a discreet agency that catered to elite families. No full resume, but excellent references. Said to be exceptional with children. Elena was desperate. She had gone through 10 therapists, 5 nannies, and 3 international treatment centers. Nothing helped Leo. He barely made eye contact, refused to speak, spent most days lining up toy trains or hiding under tables. But within 3 days of Camilla's arrival, something changed. Leo followed her. He smiled at her. He sat with her at mealtime. Elena thought maybe it was coincidence. A new face, temporary calm. But it wasn't. Now, standing in the dim nursery, Elena felt like she was in a dream. Leo sat back down at the desk and began flipping through a handmade notebook. Elena grabbed it. "What is this?" The pages were filled with strange symbols, notes, and color-coded language markings. English, French, Mandarin, Russian, Korean, Arabic, German. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Camilla took a slow step forward. "I made it for him." Elena's voice rose. "You... what? Are you a teacher? A therapist? A linguist?" Camilla didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at Leo. "Can you show your mother the puzzle we did last night?" she asked gently. Leo nodded. He opened a drawer, pulled out a small wooden puzzle, and twisted it together in seconds. As he did, he recited something, in Arabic, then again, in German, then something that sounded ancient, almost coded. Elena's breath caught. Her 7-year-old son was solving puzzles while reciting poetry and mathematics in languages she couldn't identify. She turned to Camilla. "I don't understand. How is this possible?" Camilla's expression turned serious. "It's not a miracle, Miss Elena. It's something else." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat in her office, replaying the security footage. Again and again, Leo's voice, calm, focused, controlled. He looked at the camera once, at 3:42 a.m., and smiled. It wasn't the vague, vacant smile he used to give. It was something sharper, more aware. She opened Camilla's file. No last name, no previous address, only one reference number from the agency. She dialed it. Disconnected. She called the agency directly. Voicemail. She logged into the security backups to view past weeks. All gone. Deleted. Every single file, except for tonight's clip. By morning, Elena had hired a private investigator. She told him to dig up everything on Camilla. Her past, her family, even her fingerprint if needed. By noon, she fired half her staff. She didn't trust anyone anymore. By evening, she sat in her home office, staring at an email from the investigator. Subject: line: "Camilla, you won't believe this." Her hand trembled as she clicked. A single image opened, a blurry photo. A familiar face. Camilla, but younger, hair different. Next to her name, a red stamp, missing, presumed dead. 2016. Below it, a headline from a South American newspaper. Brilliant polyglot teen disappears after exposing secret learning program. Authorities suspect foul play. Elena scrolled further. There it was again, Camilla's full name. Camilla Ortega, age at disappearance 17. She had vanished 9 years ago. Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Silence. Then a woman's, voiced soft, familiar. "Please don't be afraid, Miss Hart. I can explain everything. But not over the phone." "Camilla," Elena breathed. "No, my real name is Lucia." Elena gripped the phone tighter. "What did you do to my son?" "I set him free." The call ended. Elena sat frozen in her chair. The child she thought was lost in his own mind was evolving, growing, speaking languages she didn't even recognize. She opened Leo's notebook again. On the last page was a symbol, a circle divided into 3 parts, with a phrase beneath it in Latin, "Scientia est libertas." Knowledge is freedom. Later that night, she sat beside Leo as he slept. He looked peaceful, his small chest rising and falling with every breath. His hands still clutched a puzzle cube. She brushed a strand of hair from his face, and for the first time in years, she whispered, "I don't know who you are anymore." Leo didn't stir, but on the table beside his bed was a small note. One Elena hadn't seen before. She picked it up. It read, "You must protect him now. They're watching. L." Elena didn't sleep that night. She sat in the living room, staring out the rain-blurred glass walls of the penthouse, the note clutched in her hand. "You must protect him now. They're watching. L." Her mind raced. Who were they? What was Leo being protected from? And who exactly was Lucia Ortega, the housekeeper she knew as Camilla? By sunrise, she had every door in the penthouse reprogrammed, every security camera reset. She hired a new team, former intelligence agents, not just guards in suits. She didn't tell anyone why. She didn't trust anyone anymore. Not after watching her mute son speak languages most adults couldn't pronounce. Not after discovering that the housekeeper who'd unlocked his mind had faked her identity and had a missing person file in another country. At 7:12 a.m., Leo woke up. He walked into the kitchen without assistance, poured himself a glass of water and said, "Buenos dias, mamá." Spanish. Again, he was smiling. But something in his eyes unsettled Elena. He looked older. Not in age, but in awareness, like he could see through people, like he knew more than any 7-year-old should. "Leo," Elena said carefully, "do you know where Camilla is?" He looked at her, thoughtful. She had to go. She said it was time. Did she say why? Leo sipped his water. "She said you'd find the rest if you were brave enough." Eleanor's chest tightened. Later that day, her investigator sent another file, this one thicker. Lucia Ortega, born in Bogotá, Colombia, raised by a linguist mother and a journalist father. At age 12, she spoke 5 languages. At 16, she'd created a private method of accelerated language learning based on emotion, repetition, and visual memory. A true prodigy. Then, at 17, she vanished, her last known location, an underground institute in Brazil tied to a mysterious project called Origin. What was Origin? No one knew. No records. Just whispers, experiments with children, language used as power. The kind of power that could make or break governments. That night, Elena found Leo again at his desk. He was writing symbols into a spiral-bound journal. Not letters, not numbers, just marks. Circular, mathematical, oddly rhythmic. "What is that, sweetheart?" she asked softly. Leo didn't look up. A map. A map to where? His hand paused. Then slowly he turned and pointed at his temple. Here. Elena didn't know whether to cry or run. Something was happening to her son. Something incredible, yes, but unnatural. Dangerous. She called her ex-husband Ryan, a venture capitalist who rarely saw Leo and barely acknowledged his condition. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Elena, I'm busy. I need you to listen to me," she said. "Something's happening to Leo." She told him everything. There was silence. Then Ryan laughed. "Elena, are you seriously telling me our autistic son is speaking Arabic and drawing maps in code? Come on, this isn't one of your movies. I'm serious. I have proof. He hung up. The next morning, she took Leo to a pediatric neuro specialist downtown, but in the car, Leo whispered, "They won't understand." Elena blinked. "What do you mean?" He turned his head toward the window. "They'll try to fix me, but I'm not broken anymore." At the clinic, he was calm through the tests, cooperative, but silent. When the doctor asked him to speak, he stared at her and said nothing until the doctor left the room. Then he turned to Elena and said, in perfect Mandarin, she wasn't ready. Elena covered her mouth. When they got home, a small envelope was taped to the front door. No stamp, no name. Inside, a photo, grainy, black and white, of a room filled with children in uniforms sitting in front of glowing screens. A man in a lab coat stood at the front. On the back, a single line in red ink. He's not the first, but he may be the last. Underneath it, a second note, smaller, folded tightly. There's a storage unit under the name Isadora Hart. Ask your mother what she buried in 1995. Elena's blood ran cold. Her mother had died 10 years ago. But that name, Isadora Hart, was real. And 1995, that was the year Elena turned 12. She drove across the city, heart pounding, leaving Leo with a guard she trusted. She searched rental companies and, sure enough, found a unit under that name. Still active, still paid. She drove there immediately. Inside was dust, mothballs, and a single locked trunk. She used a bolt cutter to open it. Inside were dozens of notebooks, spiral-bound, water-stained, each labeled with a year, 1994, 1995, 1996, and one thin folder marked EH, Project Notes. She opened it, her mother's handwriting. Elena shows early pattern recognition, responds to auditory loops, memory recall off the charts when emotionally engaged, could be ready by 12. She flipped to the last page. I withdrew her from testing. They wanted too much. I couldn't risk what they'd do to her mind. I erased everything, but if they ever find her again, run! Elena dropped the folder. Her hands shook. Her own mother had hidden her from something called Project Origin. She drove home in silence, mind spiraling. What if Leo had inherited something? What if the same thing they tested in her was stronger in him? Lucia must have known. But how? When she returned to the penthouse, It was nearly midnight. She opened the front door and froze. The living room lights were off, her guards were gone. Leo was nowhere in sight, and on the floor was a single object, Leo's notebook. She picked it up. Inside, in rough, hurried handwriting, "They found us." The notebook slipped from Elena's hand and hit the hardwood floor with a dull thud. Silence. Too silent. "Leo?" Her voice cracked. As she stepped into the darkened living room, no answer. Not from Leo, not from her guards, not from anyone. Only the hum of the air conditioning, cold and mechanical. Her eyes scanned the floor. The rug was pushed slightly out of place. A glass of water, half full, still sat on the side table, as if someone had just been there and vanished. She ran to the security room. The monitors were blank, all 12 camera feeds dead. Wires had been cut cleanly, surgically with precision. Her throat tightened. Whoever did this hadn't forced their way in. They'd known exactly what they were doing. Elena's heart pounded as she opened the last feed. The hidden camera in Leo's bedroom. It had a separate battery. It flickered to life, and what she saw chilled her to the bone. Leo was standing at the window, arms at his sides. Behind him stood a tall woman in a black coat. She wasn't hurting him. She was whispering something. Leo turned, looked into her eyes, and nodded. Then the screen went dark. He went willingly. Elena collapsed into the chair. A voice inside her said it was over. She'd lost her son. But another voice, deeper, older and louder, said, "No, they don't know who you really are." She pulled out the box from her mother's storage unit. Hidden beneath the folders was something wrapped in cloth, a device, palm-sized, obsolete, a signal disruptor, a military grade, designed to jam GPS trackers and short-range security feeds. Her mother hadn't just been hiding knowledge, she'd been preparing. Suddenly, a memory flashed in Elena's mind. Her mother at the kitchen table, tapping rhythms into a wooden spoon as Elena repeated strange-sounding words. It hadn't been a game, it had been training. Her mother had once called it the language before language, a way to trigger memory without words. At the time, Eleanor was only 9, but now she remembered every syllable. She pulled up her mother's old notebooks, looking for clues. Inside a marked page titled Activation Protocol, type red, was a list of numbers and letters that looked random, until Elena noticed the bottom, a location, coordinates, a private research facility in Geneva, Switzerland. Next to it, a name, Dr. R. Saville, Director, Origin. The next morning, Elena boarded her jet and flew out alone. She didn't tell anyone, she didn't trust anyone. But she brought her mother's notebook, and Leo's. Geneva was grey when she landed. She had no appointment, no plan, but she had something. Better? Money, desperation, and a mother's fury. With a burner phone, she hacked into a private registry. The name R. Saville popped up under a biotech firm called Neurotech Foundation, listed as a philosophical advisor. It was a cover. She went straight to the gates of the compound and demanded to see him. The guard, wearing a navy blue suit and blank eyes, simply said, "No access without authorization." Elena didn't flinch. "Tell him Elena Hart is here." The name hit the man like a gunshot. His pupils widened. Then he nodded and let her through. Inside, the air smelled sterile, like metal and regret. She was led down a white corridor and into a glass room. A man in his 60s sat behind a long desk, surrounded by books and machines. He wore a brown vest, silver beard, one eye slightly lazy. "Ms. Hart," he said, not rising. "Or should I say, Isadora's daughter." Elena stayed, standing. "Where's my son?" Saville smiled, slow, practiced, soulless. "He's somewhere safe and extraordinary." Elena slammed her hand on the table. "He's a child. You took him." Saville tilted his head. "He came willingly. And no, Ms. Hart, we didn't take him. We called him, and he answered." Elena's voice trembled. "What is origin?" Saville leaned forward. "Origin was never about language," he said. It was about unlocking the deep code of the human brain. Your mother was part of the first team. She left when she realized what it could become. He paused. But you, and now your son, are part of something she never fully understood. Elena pulled Leo's notebook from her bag and tossed it on the table. He's drawing maps, not of places, of thought. You did this to him. Sable picked up the book with eerie calm. No, he was already evolving. Lucia merely showed him the door. Elena's fist curled. Then what happens now? Sable's eyes glinted. He reaches the next stage. What does that mean? He smiled. Elena, your son is no longer just a boy. He's becoming a conduit. For what? She asked. Saville stood. For everything we've lost, for a new form of memory, a new kind of intelligence, not just artificial but emotional. He's bridging what machines can't understand. Eleanor stepped back. Where is he? Saville shrugged. He's not here, but he left you something. He pressed a button under the desk. A small panel opened in the wall. Inside, a child's scarf. And a digital voice recorder. Elena grabbed it and ran. Back at her hotel, she pressed play. Leo's voice filled the room. Mom, if you're hearing this, it means I had to go. Camilla said it would be my choice, and I said yes. He paused. I can hear languages in colors now, and sometimes I dream about you teaching me things, but it's not you. It's Grandma. Another pause. They said I could help people who forgot how to feel. Camilla said I could show them. Then softer, but I miss you. I remember your laugh when I spelled banana wrong. I remember your face when I first said Mom. I remember you. Static. Then a whisper. Don't be afraid. Click. Elena dropped the recorder. Tears ran down her face. This wasn't just about speech or memory. Leo was being used as a vessel for something no child should carry, but he had chosen it. Why? What had Camilla, Lucia, taught him that made him believe this was his destiny? She opened her laptop and searched for every child connected to a region over the last 20 years. One by one, the names came up, most of them gone. A few had died in mysterious accidents. One, however, still showed signs of life. Mateo Cruz, reported missing at age 10. Now 28, resurfaced in Argentina as a neural translator. Elena tracked him down and called a number listed under a fringe research group. He answered on the first ring. Elena Hart, he said before she could speak. Her skin prickled. I know where Leo is, he continued, but getting to him will cost you. How much? Not money, Mateo said. Memory. What? You have to remember who you were before they made you forget. Eleanor's stomach dropped. Later that night, alone in her hotel room, Elena took her mother's journal. She read it cover to cover. Hidden in the final pages was a pattern. Musical notations. A code made of rhythm, not words. She tapped them slowly on the table, the same way her mother had done when she was 9. The instant the final beat hit, something shifted. A flood of memories surged into her. Not like thoughts, but sensations. Red room, a cold floor, voices repeating words over and over, a man's face, Saville. She hadn't just been tested as a child, she'd been conditioned, and at some point, her mother had erased those memories, with rhythm, the very method they used to install them. Elena gasped. It was all real. The experiments, the mind mapping, the control. And now, Leo was at the center of it all. But if he was truly choosing this path, it meant one terrifying thing. He remembered more than she ever could, and maybe, just maybe, he'd gone into the fire to burn it down from the inside. The sky over Buenos Aires was heavy with smoke and the smell of grilled meat from nearby rooftops. But inside the small cafe near the corner of San Telmo, the air felt colder. Elena sat across from a man with tired eyes and fingers that twitched nervously around a chipped porcelain cup. Mateo Cruz, the last surviving child of Origin. His voice was low, almost like he was afraid the walls were listening. "Your son isn't being held," he said. "He's being used and praised at the same time." Elena leaned forward. "Where is he?" Matteo hesitated. "Do you remember the term lingua umbra?" She shook her head. Matteo opened a folder he had brought and slid it across the table. Inside were black and white photos, most of them showing children sitting in sterile rooms, wires on their heads, glass walls separating them from watching adults. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Project LU, the shadow language, emotion without memory, thought without context. If achieved, it will allow a complete bypass of trauma in communication. "They want Leo to be the first successful carrier," Matteo explained. "The first human who can feel and translate raw emotion into communicable form without ever needing to speak or remember." Elena felt sick. "You mean they want to erase him?" "No," Matteo said. "Worse, they want him to become everyone else." Back in her hotel, Elena replayed Leo's audio again. Something new stood out. "I dream about you teaching me things, but it's not you. It's Grandma, her mother, a teacher, a guardian, and clearly a rebel. But what had she taught Leo that could make him walk into the arms of a region willingly?" Elena opened the final pages of her mother's journal again. One line she'd ignored before now pulsed like a heartbeat. "What they stole from me, I gave back to him, hidden, safe, in story." Story. Elena tore through Leo's notebooks. In one of them, page 93, Leo had drawn a series of animals: a crow, a rabbit, a lion, and a whale. Beneath them were short sentences in multiple languages. She thought it was a language practice sheet. But now, she remembered her mother once whispering bedtime stories to her in strange musical patterns, rhythms that made no sense then. They were codes, and Leo had remembered them all. The next day, Matteo took her underground, beneath the shell of an abandoned university once used by Origin's founders. He pressed his hand against a steel panel. A light scanned his veins, then the floor shifted. They stepped into a room lined with digital maps of neural pathways, each labeled by name. In the center, a glowing, real-time scan, Leo's brain. It pulsed slowly. Elena's breath caught in her throat. "How do you have this?" "He's broadcasting," Matteo said. "Every emotion, every shift, every silence. He's inside what they call the core, a hidden research chamber beneath the Carpathians. It's off-grid, funded by governments, billionaires, and ghost corporations. They built it for war. They're using it for rebirth." Elena swallowed hard. "Take me to him." Matteo stared at her. "If we go, there's no coming back." She didn't blink. "Then let's go." They traveled under aliases, no phones, no signals, every move calculated. By the time they reached Romania, Elena had stopped sleeping. Her mind was a wheel spinning in the dark, constantly replaying Leo's voice. But something else haunted her too. Lucia. Why had the woman who helped Leo learn stolen him? Or had she saved him? The entrance to the core was buried beneath a crumbling monastery in the Carpathian Mountains, covered in snow and silence. Guards with no uniforms, guns with no markings. But Matteo had codes, old ones, hidden inside the rhythm pulses Origin used to train its test subjects. He played a tone from an old device. The ground trembled, then opened. They stepped into a metal hallway, cold, bright, endless, no windows, no natural air, just the hum of power. Inside they passed dozens of rooms, each filled with motionless children. Some wore helmets, others sat. In glass tanks. "Those are the failures," Matteo whispered. "Too much emotion, or none." Elena's stomach turned. "And Leo?" Matteo nodded toward the farthest door, a glowing number, 9, Roman numeral for 9. As they reached the door, Elena paused. She could feel him. She didn't know how, but deep in her chest, something tugged. And when the door slid open, there he was sitting on a white bench, his legs swinging, eyes closed, no wires, no restraints, just Leo. He looked up and smiled. "Hi, Mom," Elena broke. She dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms. He didn't resist. He wrapped himself around her like he'd been waiting for this moment forever. She whispered, "Are you okay?" He nodded against her shoulder. "They said you'd come." "Who?" she asked. "Camilla. And the voices." "What voices?" He touched her forehead gently. "The ones that come when I speak in shadow," Matteo explained as they walked together, back toward the exit, that Leo had cracked something inside the core's system. He wasn't just broadcasting emotion. He was infecting it with truth. Every artificial intelligence tool, every mind-mapping software the core used was being corrupted by Leo's empathy. Their machines couldn't handle real human pain, so they began to fail. "He's not a subject anymore," Matteo said. "He's a virus, and he's winning." But they wouldn't let it go unpunished. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights washed the walls. Doors slammed shut. A voice echoed, "Containment breach." A protocol Omega initiated. Matteo grabbed Leo and pushed Elena behind a pillar. "They're going to wipe everything." "What do we do?" Elena cried. Leo pulled something from his pocket. It was small, a data chip. "I took the stories," he said. "All of them, the ones they tried to erase." He handed it to Elena. "You have to get this out. People need to know what they did." "No," she said. "We're leaving together." Leo shook his head. "If I leave, they'll follow, but if I stay, they think I'll finish the work. They don't know I already changed the code." Tears blurred her vision. "You're just a boy." Leo smiled. "No, Mom, I'm your boy, and Grandma's, and all the others they tried to break." He kissed her forehead. "Trust me." Matteo pulled Elena toward the escape route, a tunnel Matteo had mapped years ago when he was a test subject. She screamed as the walls closed behind her, leaving Leo on the other side. The last thing she heard before the door sealed was his voice whispering in a mix of Latin and English. "I remember who I am now." 3 weeks later, a global tech crash swept through major AI systems. Private security networks across Europe, Asia, and North America went dark for 7 minutes. In that blackout, a new audio file appeared on thousands of devices. A child's voice, telling stories, simple ones, about love, loss, fear, kindness, no music, no effects. Just voice, raw and real. No one could trace it, but those who listened said they wept and didn't know why. Elena sat on the steps of her villa in Italy, the ocean humming nearby. She wore her mother's shawl and Leo's scarf, the data chip, still warm in her hand. She hadn't heard from Matteo since they escaped, but she knew Leo was alive. She felt him. Every time she closed her eyes, she could feel a rhythm tapping behind her eyelids, like a heartbeat. Not hers, his. And she knew one thing for certain. Her silent boy didn't just learn to speak. He'd found a way to make the whole world feel, and maybe, just maybe, he was still rewriting the language of memory, one story at a time. The boy's voice didn't fade. It echoed across continents, time zones, languages, no matter where you lived, Chicago, Istanbul, Lagos, Cape Town, Melbourne. If you turned on your phone at the wrong or maybe the right moment, Leo's story would play. Not all at once, not everything. Just fragments. A line about a boy who couldn't speak but could feel pain like music. A memory of a woman brushing his hair and whispering, "You're not broken. You're just tuned to a different frequency." A sentence that started in French, shifted to Zulu, and ended in Latin, all meaning the same thing. Don't be afraid of silence. It knows more than we do. The world didn't know who he was, but some felt it in their bones. This wasn't fiction. This was a child who had lived through something monstrous and survived, and slowly a new kind of digital whisper began. "Did you hear the story, child, today? I swear the voice told me to call my brother. I haven't spoken to him in 8 years. The moment I heard it, I started crying. I don't know why. Elena didn't sleep, not because she was afraid, but because she didn't want to miss the moments Leo reached out. Each day, a new transmission arrived, but not to her devices, to her dreams. He would appear barefoot in a hallway from her childhood, or sitting beside her on the floor of her Buenos Aires apartment, humming the lullaby her mother once sang. It was never long, but always real. She kept a journal of every dream, every phrase he said. And on the 23rd night since she'd last seen him, Leo whispered something new. "Don't come looking for me yet, I'm building the ending." But others were looking for him, not to protect him, to erase him, because Leo's voice was causing problems. Corporate emotion tracking AIs failed. Online therapy bots began to crash mid-session. Governments using neural data collection saw massive drops in compliance moods. One agency, unnamed, unspeakable, issued an alert titled Project Umbra Breach, Threat Classification, Existential. They labeled him not as a boy or even a hacker, but as a language contagion, and they were determined to silence him. Meanwhile, Elena had become a target. Her passport was flagged in 3 countries, her accounts frozen. Even her villa in Italy, a gift from Leo's late father, was seized under national security suspicions. She moved quietly, fake IDs, burner phones, friends of friends who owed her mother favors from decades ago. But everywhere she went, there was someone who had heard the boy, and they always helped. A hotel owner in Prague handed her a key before she even spoke. "He saved my daughter," the woman whispered. "Just take room 7. A cab driver in Kenya let her ride free after recognizing the scarf Leo once wore. "The boy who dreams in stories," he murmured. "I owe him peace." In a crumbling library in northern Romania, she finally met someone who could help her trace the origin of Leo's signal. Her name was Nadia Dobrev, a cybernetic linguist turned rogue. When her own AI went empathic after hearing Leo, "I designed machines to decode language," Nadia told her, "but your son's doing something even I can't measure." She tapped a map on her laptop. It looked like a storm cloud of connections. These red dots, they're not servers, they're people. Each dot is someone who heard the story child and changed afterward. Changed how? Elena asked. Nadia's eyes glistened. They stopped hurting themselves or called someone they hated. Some cried for hours and couldn't explain why. Some just forgave. Elena stared at the screen, stunned. "He's healing the world." "No," Nadia said softly. "He's reminding it how to feel." But with every healing pulse came retaliation. A silent war had begun, and Origin, or whatever secret arm still operated under its name, was fighting back hard. Nadia showed Elena a private feed from a darknet server. Captured children. Silenced. Children, some looked like Leo, some were older, some were just drawings and notes never found. "These," Nadia whispered, "were test subjects who tried to break free." "And failed," Elena murmured, "until your son." One night Elena got an anonymous message via a device Nadia had set up. It was encrypted, but she recognized the rhythm. Leo's voice. "They found me, but they won't win. I have one last story left. You'll know when to come." She dropped the device, her heart pounding. "I'm going to get him," she told Nadia. "You'll never get past the gate," Nadia warned. "They've locked down the core permanently. Even I can't trace the entrance signal anymore." Elena looked up. "Then we don't go to the gate," Nadia blinked. "What do you mean? We become the story." And so Elena did something she had sworn never to do. She leaked the chip, not to the media, but to every child psychologist, trauma expert, linguist, and digital archivist she could find. Within 48 hours, over 4 million people around the world had a piece of Leo's recordings, and something strange began to happen. In different cities, at different times, children who had never met each other began speaking the same sentences in different tongues. "He's not lost. He's listening. Follow." The whale, not the lion. Stories are stronger than walls. The world was watching now. Too many eyes, too many voices, and a region had a problem because the boy they wanted to erase had become a movement. 2 days later, Elena was in the middle of nowhere, Slovenia, when Nadia rushed into the cabin with wild eyes. It's happening. What? Nadia turned her laptop. The screen showed a breaking story. Unidentified satellite hijacked. Sends global message in child's voice. They watched in silence. The video began, a simple black screen. Then white text, "This is not fiction." Then Leo's voice filled the world. "You don't have to believe in magic to believe in me. I'm not alone. I speak the language of pain, not to scare you, but to remind you how strong you already are. I wasn't stolen. I chose this, to find the others, to help them remember. But stories must end, even mine. So here is my last one. But the signal cut, not by accident. Someone pulled the cord, and the world was left with an unfinished message. Elena stood frozen, whispering, "No. No, baby, no." But Nadia was already working. He gave us an entry point, an uplink code. That satellite. It didn't just send, it received. They traced the last ping. Hungary. A lake near the border. No buildings, no city, just silence. Until they saw it. A single wooden dock. And on the end of it, a book wrapped in plastic. Inside the book was a USB. Inside the USB was a recording. This time, no encryption, no code, just Leo's voice. "This is my ending. I told them I'd give them the perfect language. One that speaks without bias. That carries no memory of violence, race, money, power. I did, but it wasn't what they expected. Because the perfect language is grief. Everyone understands it. No translation needed. So I built a program that translates grief into love, memory into empathy. And once it finishes, it will erase everything they built here. Not with bombs, but with kindness. Because even machines can't survive real emotion. Not for long. Mom, I'm going now. But you already knew that, didn't you? Tell them I wasn't a hero. Tell them I was just a boy who remembered everything. The file ended, the signal vanished, and with it, so did Leo. All across the world, over the next 24 hours, Origin systems failed. Their test labs shut down. Digital records scrambled, encrypted. Backups fried by internal emotion-triggered code Leo had planted years before. Every child once listed as subject became human, and one line appeared on every recovered file. Language must always belong to the people, not their owners. Elena never found Leo again, not in body, not in voice. But every time she walked past a school and heard a child laughing in multiple languages, every time she saw a parent bend to whisper to their child instead of scolding, every time someone said, "I don't know why, but I just felt I had to help them," she knew he was still here. The world didn't mourn Leo like a lost boy. They remembered him like a whispered story. Too impossible to be real, too personal to forget. In coffee shops, strangers traded theories like secrets. Some claimed he was living on a remote island, teaching other children. Some said he was never real, just a beautifully coded AI. But the ones who had felt him knew better. And Elena. She stopped chasing ghosts, but she never stopped listening, because Leo hadn't left her empty. He had left her with a mission. She moved to the outskirts of Florence, Italy. Not to hide, but to build. Not a lab, not a school. A place of remembering. A sanctuary for children who didn't speak the way others wanted them to. For those labeled mute, difficult, too sensitive. There were no diagnoses here, only questions like, what sound makes you feel safe? If pain was a color, what would yours look like today? Do you dream in words or pictures? And slowly, over months and years, these children began to do the unthinkable. They taught themselves how to speak. Some used sign language. Some sang. Some wrote in symbols only they understood. Some wept openly, saying, "I didn't know I was allowed to talk this way." They called it the Echo Garden, a name one boy said Leo whispered in his sleep. One stormy evening, Elena stood in the main room of the Echo Garden, staring at an empty notebook. It had been Leo's, untouched for 3 years. She had never opened it, but tonight her hands trembled as she did. Inside was only one sentence, written over and over again in different languages. Grief is the price we pay for remembering who we really are. The page below it held a postscript in Leo's shaky handwriting. But healing is what happens when we stop being afraid of that price. She collapsed into the chair, sobbing, not because she missed him, she always would, but because he was still writing. Through them all, news came slowly, like drips from a forgotten faucet. One child in Guatemala built an app that let grieving people speak to their lost loved ones, and it used part of Leo's emotional sequence. A teen in Poland recreated Leo's humming code to calm babies in hospitals, cutting stress rates by 47%. A group of deaf children in Cape Town formed a theatre where every performance was a different language, half spoken, half danced. Their motto? We speak silence fluently. All of them claimed the same thing. We didn't invent this, we remembered it. Then came the day the world stopped again. Not from a disaster, but from a reunion. A journalist from Japan, tracing unexplained healing phenomena in refugee camps, found a quiet boy teaching displaced children how to say thank you in 12 languages. When asked his name, he only smiled and said, "My name doesn't matter, only the story does." He gave her a recording on a wax tape. It said, "When we lose people, we think we've lost the story. But really, they've just given us the pen. So don't ask if I'm alive. Ask what you'll do with what I gave you." The recording went viral, but no one claimed it was Leo, and Leo never appeared again. It wasn't necessary, because by then there were thousands of echoes, children, adults, elders, speaking not just new languages, but new truths. Truths like, I am not broken. I'm translated differently. I'm not silent. I just don't speak your fear. Pain doesn't mean stop, it means listen harder. Years passed. The world didn't become perfect, but something subtle changed, the way people paused before yelling at a child. Silver now streaked her once black hair, but every morning she sat by the same olive tree Leo once read under, and every evening she watched the sunset in silence, remembering how he once said, "The sun sets in every language." And when she died, peacefully after a life fully lived, the children didn't mourn her with tears. They sang her favorite lullaby. In Swahili, in Portuguese, in Mandarin, in Zulu, and in Leo's favorite, Spanish. They didn't say goodbye. They said, "Thank you for listening." And the world, it kept spinning, but now with a little more softness, a little more patience, a little more story. Because in the end, the boy who couldn't speak taught us all how to listen. Life lesson. Sometimes the most powerful voice is the one that chooses to whisper truth instead of shouting pain. Real connection doesn't come from being heard, it comes from being understood. The end.